ballroom was full of steam and boiling water and everyone was looking at me.
Welcome to El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. Each episode, Tony sits down with travelers, expats, creatives, and community voices from across Latin America and beyond, sharing stories of travel, culture, connection, and the journeys that shape us. So grab a cafecito or a tea and enjoy the conversation.
Thanks for having me. My name is Pierce Lowney. I'm actually backpacking at the moment, but my background is in hotels and hospitality and whatnot. I'm from Ireland, so born and raised in Ireland. I'm originally from the very remote area of west of Ireland called Cork, down in the county, but I live in Cork City at the moment, so country boy at heart, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you get started in the hospitality industry?
I was young. I'm from a farming family, so my first job was probably when I was 14 years old in the local pub. Very small village, a couple of houses, a local church, shop, 3 pubs. So started there when I was about 14, just collecting glasses, doing the usual young person kind of stuff, and just developed in that role. I was there all the way through school, so I worked there for nearly 10 years. Very local kind of place, so you get tourists in the summer and you get local people coming in for drinks and chats and whatnot. Well, it's kind of, if you can imagine Ireland, very typical countryside, green rolling hills, sheep, lots of farmers, pints of Guinness, it's by the coast, so it's really that type of idea.
Oh, okay.
So that was a good starting point with hospitality, because you learn it from the ground up and you learn it from the local standpoint, and the owner of the bar was really good at hospitality and ran a good business, so a good grounding in that. And I worked there all through college, so I would have gone to college in the Cork City. Cork, where I live in the county, is about 2.5 hours from the city. So it's quite remote. So I would have gone home and worked on the weekends and gone back to college in the week. And then I started working in my first hotel when I finished college, in a very nice hotel called the River Lee Hotel in Cork City. And from there just kind of developed just up through the ranks, learned what side the fork should go on, what side the knife should go on, how to fold a napkin, how to iron a tablecloth.
Also very fancy.
Yeah, it's a nice hotel.
Not like Cafecito.
No, listen, Cafecito's nice, but it's a bit of a luxury hotel. Yeah, it's nice. So it's a good. I didn't know that when I started there, but it's obviously, if I'm from the countryside, we don't know a luxury hotel versus a normal hotel. We've never been exposed to it, so I suppose it's quite different to get that idea,
Okay. And how big was this hotel? How many people?
It's a big enough hotel. There's probably nearly 200 bedrooms in it. So quite a large hotel. There might be 150 staff in total working there between all the departments, so it's quite a big...
Okay. And do you remember the moment or the time period when you were like, this is for me, this is what I want to do, I want to be in the hotel industry?
It never kind of came to me like that in one big bang. I suppose it's like anywhere you work away at something, you kind of get promoted, you learn more, you kind of get a better wage, and all of a sudden, as you in any job, I think it's similar where you kind of develop up. But I think I'm just kind of maybe predispositioned a little bit because, working from the countryside, learning that part of it. And I think my personality is more outgoing in a way, like meeting people, fast paced. I talk fast, I walk fast, so working at a fast pace suits me as well. So I think it just kind of matches well, yeah.
So don't worry, people, if you have to slow the speed down on this podcast for today, that's completely fine. The first thing that always comes to my mind when I think of any sort of hotel is something like Fawlty Towers. I'm assuming you've seen that show before. For sure. Oh yeah, for sure. It's really popular, particularly with my parents' generation. But everyone knows Fawlty Towers. You're calling me old.
I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
But I think, everyone knows. I think particularly Ireland, the UK, it's really popular. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, no, definitely. So could you think of a moment, like maybe one of your Fawlty Tower moments in...
Do you know, there's often one that comes to mind. There is a few, but one that definitely comes to my mind is we do a lot of training for new staff. So you have people who are like myself when I was around 14, 15, 16, 17, coming in who've never been in a hotel before and they're starting their first job. We recently, I suppose it's in my mind because it's recent, but last year we had a lady start with us. She was only 16, but she had never been pretty much in a hotel. I had asked her to just put water jugs on the tables for all of our guests, but I didn't specify any more than that. I just pointed to it, and she filled all the water jugs with boiling water and put them on all the tables for me. But I suppose I didn't tell her I needed cold water with ice, but I suppose it goes back to telling people, but all the guests were just looking at me being like, why is there a steel jug that you couldn't touch? It was so hot with the boiling water. But that was definitely a moment when the whole ballroom was full of steam and boiling water, and everyone was looking at me as to why we would think of putting boiling water on tables instead of cold water. But there's many moments that come to mind, but that one stuck in my head because it's recent.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, the training staff is always a challenge.
It's a learning moment for all of us, yeah.
It's definitely a moment. A story of a guest, something interesting that happened with a guest.
There's definitely one that comes to mind from my old job. It was a customer. It was just a fascinating story for his life more than what happened in the hotel. He was 95 and his wife was 95 as well, but they were very fit and able. They were staying in the hotel with us. But I was talking to him for about 2 hours, and they both were widowed twice. He had fled Ireland when he was 16 because someone had mistaken him for someone else, and the Irish Republican Army were chasing him. So he got on a boat, and the boat actually landed in Australia. And from there, he's an amazing story where he started a business by himself. He met both of his wives there. He was a pilot in World War II. He crash landed in India. He started a charity in India when he was there. Then he was a prisoner of war in Japan for a while. He played for Irish rugby one time because they had no one to cover the position that he could play. So they flew him from Australia to play. This went on for every time he said something. It was a fascinating story of how could this ever happen to someone? And his wife was a lady, as in not knighted, but she was somehow, her husband was a lord in England or something, and then he had died and they had met, and it's a huge story. I can't actually think of it fully, but I distinctly remember sitting there for about 2 hours just with my mouth open, everything he said really casually, and I was just like, wow, and then what happened, and then what happened, and then what happened? So just a fascinating man. Yeah.
No, definitely the people you meet along the way is just incredible. This is one of the reasons I love my job. Yeah. It's one of the reasons I even started the podcast.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Was to hear the stories. A nightmare story with a guest.
We had a few. It's rarely guests. Normally when it goes really wrong, it's a bigger thing. One Christmas we were partnering with a charity to do kind of charitable events, but we both partnered with a third party. So there was a kind of a Feed the Homeless charity was ticketing an event, and we were hosting the event, but a third party was actually selling the tickets and coordinating with both of us basically. But that person didn't know what they were doing, so they oversold the event. So they double booked it. So instead of 200 people, 400 arrived that day. And there was supposed to be a quiz, but he had forgot to book the quiz stuff, the prizes and everything, and then he disappeared. So we had 200 people and we didn't have food for our seats for our prizes or whatnot. So we had a lot of work to do in bringing that back.
And how did you figure that out?
We just had to keep going. We had to just serve 200 and then ask them to move somewhere else and serve 200 more and change the menu. And then we had to get up on stage and just explain what happened and get bottles of wine. They all seemed to help a lot. Just bring it back. Yeah, people weren't happy, but I suppose you design something you can do,
Mm-hmm.
So you do your best, yeah.
What do you think is something that would be interesting for people to know about the hotel industry behind the scenes, like sort of a behind the scenes type thing?
Every hotel is very different, but I think, I suppose from my experience, it's a big team that people mightn't realise when they see it. Like there's marketing people working in the hotel, sales, accounts, got chefs. It's a huge, I suppose, organisation from what people see. They check in with a receptionist, they go to a bedroom, but there's a huge machine behind that kind of works. Like in reviews and I suppose looking at the online, how you book it, how we can make it special for guests, how we review every guest before they come in, check who they are, what they're doing, and when they're arriving, what they want in their room, what we could do for them, have they any special requests that they need, all that kind of stuff. So it's a much bigger, I suppose, what you see if you check in, get your key, go to your room and go downtown or go out to dinner. I suppose before and after that there's a big bit of work that goes in that people don't see.
Okay. Well, nowadays with the internet and people booking on different platforms and so forth, there's always a different reviews. What are some of the strangest reviews that you might have? One
of the hotels I worked in was called the Metropole Hotel, which is a very common name for hotels. So you get a lot of people who mistake your business, put the wrong name in it. They could put a really scathing review of how the business was so bad, and when you look into it, it's actually they were in the wrong hotel. They ate in a different restaurant. They didn't realise it wasn't the business they were talking about. Plus you get normal ones as well. Our steak was too meaty, that kind of stuff, like our drink was too cold or something like that, where you kind of say, that's kind of what you, like a steak should be meaty, the bed should be comfortable, the pillow should be soft. So when you hear things like, my steak is too meaty, the pillow was too soft, the room was too quiet, you do get those now and again of people's preferences of like, the hotel is too central, where, you're kind of saying, that's kind of what you're staying here for, is the central location or the pillows or the steak. So in fairness, we've never had anything really too scathing, I can say. But just mistakes, something like that, or people just put really odd, if they have specific preferences that maybe are way out of the ordinary and they never tell anyone and then they complain about it afterwards. It's typically something like that, or they've had a problem and they've never said the problem, or so then you hear about it afterwards and you try and figure out, you're trying to backtrack a little bit. But
what would you say is one of the biggest mistakes you made and how did you solve it?
What's the biggest mistake I made? Do you know, there's often rarely big mistakes you make. I find there's probably smaller mistakes that kind of add up. Very often I find the biggest one is maybe hiring the wrong people, or hiring someone who's maybe a very good, experienced person who can make all the cocktails, can do all the good stuff, but doesn't have the right attitude, or, you know, they don't take it seriously, or that kind of way. So that typically tends to blow up in your face. Because when you hire someone, you kind of invest in them a little bit. You kind of try not to see the signs sometimes that this person is not working out, or they're not the right person, and you try to then overcompensate by saying, but those cocktails are really good, you know. They might be late at some time.
You must love pepper in your
exactly.
In your
What's wrong with you, you know? But that's typically what normally happens, is like bad people will start to create problems internally with guests. You'll see reviews coming in, so it's often that is a problem. It's like making a small decision, that kind of choosing the wrong dish on the menu that doesn't work for the kitchen and service gets slow, or choosing a different system for checking in and it doesn't work properly. And so those small decisions make a big difference when you're dealing with bigger numbers, you know.
Again, another Fawlty Tower moment.
There's some language barriers, like American guests might say arugula, we'd say rocket, or, you know, so there's misunderstandings of what people want to get, or pepper, you know, as in black pepper instead of like chopped pepper or something. But Cork City would have a lot of American guests in summertime. It's quite popular for American guests, people coming to visit, tracing their roots or whatnot. And typically they have expectations that might be slightly different to what we would expect in Ireland or provide in Ireland. So room sizes, number of elevators that are there. Typically they'll be very information focused. They'll want all the information, explain the dishes, explain, you know, where to go, what to do, that type of service. Whereas Irish people typically are much more direct and want just one thing and will do their own research a little bit more. So there's those kind of cultural stuff, and we'd often have to brief our teams and seasonal stuff to be like, okay, so we know now we're going to have like tour series where you might have older guests who are arriving and they're going to be a bit slower and might need more direction and whatnot. Whereas in October there's a huge jazz festival in the city, so you have more party goers. So it's about maybe securing the place and making sure people don't drink too much and that kind of idea. And then winter we get a lot of Europeans coming over, so a lot more kind of sharing dishes, and a lot more language might be a little bit different. So you have to dumb things down and explain things in a simpler English than you might have to normally, or have written notes that are probably easier to use. So every season that we have is a bit different.
Very diplomatic answer.
Yes, exactly.
You're very diplomatic on that one. Yeah. Because yes, again, if you watch Fawlty Towers, you'll see some of the way that they deal with the different nationalities. Right.
We actually do. The hotel I worked in did a 2-week show of Fawlty Towers. It's a theatre company that come in and they take over a ballroom where the hotel will provide dinner, and then the actors will pretend to work with our staff and be waiters. And it's actually one thing that comes back in reviews an awful lot, is a lot of people don't get it. They don't get it's Fawlty Towers. Even though they've paid for a ticket, it's a show basically. They'll come in and they'll have a show. They'll review and say, I didn't like my dinner, my food, because one of their gags is like they'll serve all of the men soup to start with and no food to the women. And let all the women there and tell them nothing. And they'll all start going like, where's my soup? And they'll direct us specifically, say, make sure no woman gets the soup, just to make it funny. And then after 10 minutes, all the women get soup. So it's kind of a gag that they do, but they don't often get that. And you'll often get reviews after saying, my soup was cold when I got it, I was delayed, and they kind of they think the food part is our problem, even though it's a whole show that we're directed to do basically. So you get those things as well.
Okay, got it. One thing that you recommend to people to make their hotel stay easier?
I think people, if you're coming to somewhere particularly, you're coming for a reason there, so you're going on a holiday, you have a business meeting or whatnot. And I think it's important to look at the bigger picture, because people can get very caught up in smaller details. Like people coming to Ireland are there for, you know, to meet the people, to trace their roots, have some whiskey, have some beer, go dancing or whatever the case is. And the room size, really, you're not spending much time in that room. So sometimes people get caught up in a room size when they're really not going to spend much time in that room. So equally, like, I think we often do weddings and special events, and sometimes, you know, people get so caught up in smaller details of like, who walks in first and what do I do then? Who says that? And do you do this? Whereas it's a wedding. Like the whole idea should be like a celebration. I suppose it's that kind of zooming out a small bit into like, okay, what are we doing here? What am I here to do? Am I here for the room that's an extra inch in size, or am I here to meet the people, get the recommendations and whatnot? So if you're that openness and you're looking at a bigger picture, it makes things a lot easier, you know. More enjoyable too, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at weddings, did you ever have one of those weddings where they had, you know, they start a fight or anything like that?
Never really a fight, but like, weddings are normally
it's Ireland.
Yeah,
everybody's drinking.
We purposely don't do big weddings for that reason. Okay. We do smaller weddings. So we might do a wedding of 100 people or less, which is a small wedding for Ireland.
Okay.
Typically, the biggest problem you'll have is multiple people want different things and they're expecting different things, but I suppose it goes back to looking at enjoying a wedding, or we've often had brides who are just crying all day because they're so stressed, and they completely forget about the wedding. They just want to get it over with, or they want certain things. They want candles up the walkway, and then they have a big dress and they walk up the walkway and they knock all the candles. So these things they don't kind of think through. They overthink nearly. They don't think it through, but they also overthink at the same time. So often it's better. We will normally, as a hotel, take care of all of it, as long as they stay out of it in some ways. They give us what they want and we'll deliver that. But then when they see it, they start changing, and actually there's 10 more people coming, there's 10 less people coming, can we move the chair over here? That's when things start becoming a bit more stressful.
Okay. Now that you're traveling, what do you look for in a hotel, in a stay? What is it like to be on the other side of the desk?
I look for different things everywhere I go, so it totally depends where I'm going to. If I have friends somewhere, it depends where my friends are going as well. Like if I'm often in Ireland, like I like hotels, so I'll often go to a luxury hotel just to see what that's like, because you really want to see it from the other side. Whereas I wouldn't go to that when I'm abroad. I prefer a hostel because it's more of a backpacker vibe. You get to, I suppose, meet similar people, whereas I think the hostel is that communal element where you like meeting people, you get recommendations, you quickly can meet groups and go do things, whereas I think in the hotel element you kind of prefer your service, your privacy a bit more. So if you're doing some work, it's probably better for that element. There's never one that I like or can say that I really always go towards. I always look at reviews, I always look at, that it's a good quality place. But other than that, I kind of don't, there's not much guiding me besides that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And in this particular journey, how long are you traveling for, and what countries have you?
Started in January and I'll be heading home in August. So I did January, February, March and a half of April in India and Nepal. And then I went home for 4 days to change my clothes and meet everyone. And then I went to South America. So I've done Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Bolivia, and now Ecuador. I'm going to finish up in Guatemala. So I'm going north all the time through South America. Traveling for a good while. Yeah, traveling for it'll be probably 7-ish months. Yeah.
Okay. And in those 7 months or previously, an interesting hotel experience or hostel experience that you had that was a little bit that you're like, wow, okay, I won't forget this one as a guest.
There's different variations. There's the place I stayed last in Ireland is called Dromoland Castle. It's a really nice luxury kind of a castle, and that place blew me away because it's a proper castle. It's really, really luxury, but very old school. Like there's big gates and whatnot, so it's really nice. But the one that comes to mind recently, I always think it's people and whatnot. I was staying outside Trujillo, south in Peru. It was just a regular guest house with maybe 5 or 6 rooms. But the lady who ran it was an elderly lady who ran a restaurant downstairs as well. And she spoke no English, and she was so casual. And so when you were checking in, she sat you in the restaurant, she sat next to you, customers were walking in. Not that she didn't care, but she was just kind of really, really casual about everything. She had a little dog walking around the floor. And I was there for a couple of days, and every time I walked in, she'd sit me down, she'd make me sit down, even though I wanted to just go somewhere or get recommendations, and she'd sit with me and she'd try and talk Spanish to me a little bit. So it was just a small thing, but it's like, I think it's the people you remember, and it's more the interactions of how people are, maybe rather than the big picture stuff. It's more those glimpses of like what you remember of like, I remember her, or she reminds me of that person. They kind of connect with your mind a bit more, don't they?
The human touch, the contact.
The human touch, exactly. Yeah. Even though there was no English between us, and I don't speak much Spanish, but you're still able to connect fairly quickly.
There's still so much you can communicate.
Sure. Yeah.
There's so much. I always say to people, don't worry about not speaking the language. There's
exactly.
so many different ways you can communicate. Yeah, and what are your thoughts between Airbnb and a hotel or a hostel?
I use a bit of everything, really. I always, because obviously I work in hotels, so I know the background, I always try and book with somewhere directly. It's typically better if they have a facility to book with them. Like if there's a hotel that has 2 hotels, they might have a website or whatnot, and it's better for, I think, to have a one-to-one with someone in that way, but also it's better for business because obviously there's commissions with bookings.com, and it's probably more profitable for them, and I suppose you want small businesses to succeed in that way as well. But I use everything. I normally will search on the main sites like bookings.com or Hostelworld or Airbnb, find I think what will suit me best for the location I'm going to, whether it's like has good trekking options or is communal or is not communal, depending how I'm feeling on that time. And from there, I'll try and search reviews and just see what people are saying about it, if there's consistently good or bad reviews or, something like that. And then if they don't have their own dedicated site or contact, I'll book it online myself through one of those sites. But typically for me, reviews are a big part of it. And I suppose everywhere I know from working in hotels that reviews are not always going to be perfect, but it's more to match up what I'm looking for with a location or destination and what that place offers, whether it's a party vibe, a relaxed vibe, whether it's more a wellness something or other, or maybe it's just peace and quiet, so depending where I'm going or what I'm doing, Like if I'm flying out tomorrow morning, I do not want to stay in a party hostel. I want to stay somewhere quiet. where I can relax, pack my bag, get ready and whatnot. Whereas if I'm trekking somewhere, I kind of want more communal. I want somewhere that's going to be streamlining treks and that will organise stuff for you. So it depends everywhere you go, you know.
Well, do you remember reading a funny review about somewhere that you're like, what is this?
Yeah, I found particularly in India, there's a culture of kind of either great or terrible. It would be either the best place someone's ever stayed in or the worst place someone's ever stayed in. And typically when you look at those reviews, they're kind of minimal. Like, the water wasn't as hot as I wanted it to be, and then the window wouldn't close, and then it's kind of, you know, when you have an impression in your head, you will find things. You'll find the hanger isn't hanging right and the door isn't right. Whereas then I've seen other reviews where I stayed in and it's been totally average, but people have said, you know, the water was lukewarm, was the best lukewarm water I've ever had. So it depends kind of, I think if you're coming into it, and often the welcome is a big thing. If the welcome is warm, you're starting off right and you'll see the positives. And I think if the opposite happens, if you don't feel welcome right, you're kind of then looking to, it wasn't a warm welcome and this wasn't right and the bed wasn't comfortable. So there's none that sticks out to my mind, but typically I found that it was either that catastrophizing or it was the best ever.
Do you see yourself staying in hospitality?
Yeah, I do. You know, I really like it. I kind of miss it a little bit now that I'm away from it. It's always good to get a break from it because it can be quite intense. Like my last job, we did a project of renovating a hotel, which is legendarily stressful because you're operating a business as well as renovating the same business at the same time. So it was great to have a break after that, but I think I'm ready now to get back into it again. I kind of miss the buzz of it a little bit because obviously it's very fast paced. You still meet people very regularly. You get to train people. You do get to work in a lot of different skills areas between the business side of it, sales and marketing and accounting and making the money work, and then also training your team up and seeing young people develop and seeing people get promoted and whatnot. And also then from the guest point of view, you get to see weddings happen. You get to, sometimes there's funerals. You get to see a family looked after for funeral, which is really important. You get to see people coming home to visit after years. So you get that whole spectrum of, it's not just holidays, you get business deals that are done that are really profitable, and people often come back to where we've worked to say, God, 50 years ago I signed my first deal here for my company, or my mom got married here 100 years ago and now I'm back for my 50th anniversary and we're taking a photo on the same staircase. And so it's nice. It's a nice atmosphere to work in, and I think there's obviously ups and downs to every job. There's hard work and, you have to work weekends and whatnot, but I think it's a very interesting line of work to have in, and you can work in many different areas, as I said. When I'm going back, actually, I'm back in August and I'm the operation manager for Cork and the Fork Festival, which is a big, it's actually one festival of the year this year in Europe. So it's a big week-long festival that's happening in the city, because Cork is a great provenance for food and whatnot, so it's large events happening throughout the week. So if anyone's listening and is interested in Cork, it's a good time to go visit the Cork and the Fork Festival, yeah. You might see me running around.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for taking the time with me today, and all the best the rest of your journey and your return home.
Great, thank you for having me. Yep.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of El Cafecito Travel Talks with Tony Lloyd. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest, check the podcast notes for links and information related to this episode. And if you have questions, stories, or topics you'd love us to explore in future episodes, feel free to reach out. Tony also helps independent travelers plan meaningful journeys throughout Central and South America, including cultural and community-based experiences. And if you'd like to support the podcast and help keep these conversations going, you'll find a contribution link in the podcast notes. Until next time, thank you for sharing a cafecito or tea with us, and safe travels wherever your journey may take you.